Hazel, a question for you. What do you think in terms of how the government and schooling system, do you believe or do you feel that the schooling system and how things are set up, are they designed to help our children to flourish and live the ultimate life that they truly desire, or the opposite? What's your thoughts on that?
Gosh, yeah, that's a whole can of worms, isn't it? But I have to say, yeah, we've got some, I think, similar thinking about this. I have one son, and it's interesting because when he first started school, literally the minute he put his school uniform on, the very first time, and I dropped him off at school, it felt like I was putting him into a sausage machine.
Okay.
Literally, that was I don't know where it came from, but just my thinking was, here he goes, off into the sausage machine.
Yeah.
And I think innately, I recognised that, school is, whilst it is a great place to have social interaction and to learn a lot of life skills, I think that, to be really honest, if I'm being totally honest, that it's an antiquated system and it needs a massive shake-up, because what it's teaching children to do is be good at doing well at tests, at ticking the boxes, at recognising that I've got to learn this, repeat it parrot fashion and regurgitate it into an exam and get a result. And that will allow me to then progress, and so on and so forth. Whereas in actual fact, I think that if children had a lot more freedom to explore themselves, to figure out what it is that they enjoy in life, not just be prescripted to learn certain things, just have more time exploring. There are certain countries that allow children more freedom until a later age to explore themselves, see what they're good at, their aptitudes and what have you, and allow them to develop in those manners and have much more, freedom to explore that. And it wasn't until actually COVID hit, and my son was at grammar school, and he was second year at grammar school, so he was in year 8. And the minute that happened, and we started home educating, obviously from that point, within the school structure, fair enough. But interestingly, all the stuff that was coming through, my son was questioning and saying, do I have to learn this? And do I have to? And I was like, I couldn't actually disagree, because in myself, I was thinking, well, where's he headed? Is he going to go off to university and do all this, that and the other and just follow the same path as everybody else? Nothing wrong with that. It's just that I knew that there was maybe more to it than that. And literally on a walk with a friend at that point, we were kind of, really questioning education and what our children were getting out of it. And we said, wouldn't it be amazing if we could just home educate and just they can learn and explore them and nurture and develop their own talents and interests. And literally the boys, my son and her son, jumped through the hoop and just basically said, oh my gosh, yes, we definitely want to do that. Now, as it happens, my son ended up being home educated for the next 3 years and her son didn't. And it was like, he said, it was being like being let out of prison.
Wow. Okay. That's what he said, yeah.
He said his very words.
Okay.
And since that point, he's had the freedom to completely immerse himself in what he enjoys and is good at, which is everything tech, which is everything to do with now, sort of automotive like engines and, getting involved in that sort of thing and really explore his innate side. And there was no way in a million years that was ever going to happen through the education system. So, yeah, and I think also we discovered that there were an awful lot of other children who were unhappy with being at school and actually enjoyed the experience of having those, however many months it was that we were in lockdown, of actually, having a bit of time out and a bit of time to just decompress and perhaps, find themselves a little bit. And then when they had to go back in, it was a whole other thing. And there've been all sorts of problems since, haven't there, with mental health issues and, children not wanting to go back to school. There's been quite an enormous amount of, rally against that institutional thinking. So I think it is time for a shake-up. I think it is time for the education system to have a shake-up. If you think about it, it was meant to be for the industrial age, and we are no longer in the industrial age. we've gone way past there. We're not there to create minions to come out and, just do the roles which society perhaps dictates. There's so much more scope for people, for children these days.
Well, I understand, and as we've said, I agree with you in lots of these areas. I mean, I feel quite strongly about this type of stuff.
I'm going to say, how about you? Because you've got a daughter as well.
Of course, I've got a daughter, and how I feel about these type of things is that where do I start? Okay, right. Look, I am of the camp that I believe that there's benefits of what you can learn from school, and some of that comes down to social interaction, all that sort of stuff with other children and that sort of thing. So I can see that the benefit there's elements of I believe that things like English is good to learn how to read and to write, and mathematics I think is also very good. From that point I then start to struggle. I really genuinely do, because I feel that a lot of things of what is being taught is based on an agenda that is based around what a system, a government, wants to. It's almost like wanting to create clones of just what you mentioned, the sausage factory. One after the other, a clone of this is what our definition of history. This is what it is, and this is now what I'm going to teach. It doesn't matter whether or not this is the truth or not. This is from one perspective in terms of what it is that we want you to learn. So as a result of that, that's what you're now going to learn. Other aspects, maybe even things down to even like, RE, religious education, like loads of different things, loads of aspects. All comes down to a place of, look, this is what we want you to know.
Yes.
So this is now what we are going to teach, of which at the end of it, you now have to take a test to make sure that you have now taken on board what we want you to know, regardless whether or not it's truthful or not. What about the real truth behind so many different things? Well, I can get into this. I really can.
That's a whole other
podcast.
We will
do. Don't get me wrong, we will do. We will go deeper into these type of things because this is a part of who I am. But just to keep it on the basics for now, this is what we want you to learn, and you're going to now take a test to make sure that you can now regurgitate what it is that we want you to know.
Yeah. So is that success? That's the thing. So if you've got, a student who's really good at learning and really good at regurgitating the information and really good at doing exams and getting A stars, whatever it is these days, is that success?
Okay, good question. I don't think it is. Like for me, obviously I've got a daughter, and I talk to her about these type of things all the time, and I'm very honest with her in terms of how I feel, and I want her to live. So that then means that I don't want you to just be a clone in the system. I want you to live. So, the questions of what I ask her a lot is, well, instead of what do you want to be when you get older, it's like, well, what sort of lifestyle do you want to live when you're older? That sort of thing. And then we can do something that kind of matches that lifestyle that, that you feel passionate about, and something that can give you the type of freedom and the lifestyle that you ultimately really want.
Yeah.
However, going through the whole educational system and getting A stars and all the rest of it. And guess what? I got an A in this and I got an A in that. Well, all right, well, great. But you got a lot of these people that have got all the degrees and everything, but they struggle to get a job, or they're doing low paid jobs and stuff like that. So what does that degree really mean ultimately? I really genuinely believe that success is you really finding your own path, and you really getting to a point where you can live your own true purpose, or your what you're passionate about, and being able to try and make a living out of that, and living how you want to live.
Yes.
Living the lifestyle that really matches you. And like I say, the world is full up of different types of people, though, because we need people that might not be the free thinkers and the people out there that are going to try and change the world and stuff like that, because we need people in this society the way it is to do certain jobs that we might not necessarily want to do. So I understand from that perspective, but on a whole I think that there's other ways of educating our children. I really hate the idea of children going into an establishment and they just have to sit down and learn through being told, rather than being able to express themselves, all this ADHD talk just because a child is not being stimulated by the teacher. And it's down to the teacher to really now be able to stimulate the child and get the child to learn. But that child might need to learn through play, learn through different types of learning, not just sit there and listen to a teacher. I remember what it's like when I was at school. You can sit there and listen to a teacher, and that's it. Yeah, this is it.
Sometimes.
I remember there have been times that I fell asleep in the class. I remember because I was that bored. And I came out of school and I didn't have great grades at all. Yeah. I came out, I think I got 1 C in English. I then got D's, E's and F's. I then went to college and I dropped out of college because you don't have to go, right? You don't have to go. And that's pretty much about it. Yeah. That's my education. That's it. Yeah. However, I've still been able to go on and generate millions of pounds in my businesses and live that lifestyle that I've ultimately really wanted to live. And to be honest with you, I can't really see how school really kind of pushed me or propelled me towards that. If anything, I was always told that, well, you're not really going to amount to anything based on me not being able to come out of school and have good academic grades. So,
yeah, no, absolutely. I think, you've got, there is a place for academia, and there are some people who are more able, or not able, but they're more aligned with the academic route, and they have the brain capacity to learn in that kind of way, and they have the ability to then go into universities doing PhDs, etc. And I think that there is a place for it, certainly in terms if you want to become a doctor or a lawyer or something like that, where it requires a certain level of education, and that is absolutely fine. But I think the fact that we're being almost like pushed into or encouraged into higher education, at the end of the day, these universities, they're businesses.
Oh, yeah.
They are businesses at the end of the day. And, they need the money coming in from the different sources to be able to fund what they do. And so therefore academia is almost like it's commercialized rather than, an individual being allowed to explore what is right for them. If you think about, you go back to the good old days and, you think about that there were only, I don't know, maybe a few % of people that actually ended up going to university because that was the right route for them or what have you. And now it's just become this big, opened up, everybody's got to go to university. But actually the reality of it is that a lot of people, a lot of students end up in 30, 40, 50, 60,000 pounds worth of debt, starting off in life, not being able to get the job that they had hoped perhaps, and ending up doing something completely different from their degree. Whereas if they'd had the freedom and had been allowed to explore their own innate abilities and talents and what have you from a much earlier age, if they're not encouraged to do that outside of school, really, what hope have they got? And like you just said there, Jay, an awful lot of people who do make it in terms of being entrepreneurial are not necessarily academic.
Yeah,
they're the ones, you hear all day long Dragon's Den, types who have been, have had bad grades at school. Right, Richard Branson. You've got.
Also, Gary Vaynerchuk talks a lot about this type of stuff as well.
Yeah, I absolutely. I think that if you've got a child who is not necessarily that great at taking exams, the schooling system does not serve them. It's as simple as that.
Right. But that now doesn't mean that they're not as clever, not
at all
intelligent. If anything, their creativity might be, it's not for, they could even go on to become the real entrepreneurs of the world, the real successful, leaders, because they don't want to conform to a system and an ideology that is just geared up to create clones.
Yeah. I think if the education system was allowed to be more flexible, was allowed to have more capacity to for people to express themselves in different ways other than a written exam or a verbal exam or what have you, if it was allowed to have more coursework elements. I remember when GCSEs were relatively new when I did mine, many moons ago. There was a bit more freedom in terms of having that coursework alongside the exams to demonstrate your abilities in a particular subject. But I think it's interesting that I don't know how it would be mixed up or how it would be, but I mean, having been immersed in the home education world over the last 3 years, I see children just kind of really being allowed to explore themselves and being allowed to put together like a portfolio of work, let's say, a portfolio of what they can demonstrate that they can do, like photographic evidence, or their own like a PowerPoint or something like that, to show what they've been doing or what they're good at, etc., so that they can actually maybe take a few exams like English, maths, which are important, I do agree, and maybe science as well, if that's pertinent to what they want to go and do. But, you know, to kind of have an overall rounded, like I say, portfolio of them as an individual, what they can bring to the table, and demonstrating skills, interests, abilities, talents in a totally different way than just taking the exams.